On our wedding day, I overheard my fiancée chuckling with her friends. "Picture if my ex just stormed in and whisked me away like in a film," she said. They all laughed. I stood there, mute. An hour later, she discovered how this film truly concludes. My wedding day was meant to be the most joyful of my life. In a strange, ironic twist, it was. It was the day I saw everything with absolute clarity. It was the day I narrowly escaped a catastrophe as massive as a cannon shot. And it was the day I became the director of the cinematic fantasy my fiancée always dreamed of starring in. She just didn't care for the finale I crafted. Let's clear this up. My name is Ethan and I'm 35. My fiancée, Megan, was 29. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 1. On the surface, everything seemed flawless. I have a solid career. We lived in a lovely home I owned, and I provided the lifestyle she always claimed she desired. But for the past year, something gnawed at me, her fixation on her ex-boyfriend, Kyle. He was the specter haunting every space. She'd compare me to him, often subtly. "Kyle loved this tune. Kyle and I used to visit this place constantly." I'm not the jealous type, but I'm no fool either. I knew she hadn't moved on. I tried addressing it, but she'd brush it off with a laugh, call me overly suspicious, and insist their past was long gone. Her eyes, however, told a different tale. I'm a direct person. I don't play games. 6 months before the wedding, I sat her down and laid it all bare. I told her the constant references to Kyle were disrespectful, and if she wasn't fully devoted to our future, we should part ways. She put on a dramatic display, shed a few tears, and swore I was her only love. She vowed to stop mentioning him and to cut him out of our lives completely. For a time, she did. I let myself believe we turned a corner. I was naive. Fast forward to our wedding day last Saturday. The venue was a stunning, historic countryside manor we'd rented for the weekend. I was in my tuxedo, feeling anxious but thrilled. The ceremony was an hour away. I was heading from my suite to find my best man when I passed the bridal suite where Megan was preparing with her bridesmaids. The door was slightly ajar, enough for me to hear their laughter. I heard her best friend, Sarah, say, "You seem so relaxed. Aren't you nervous at all?" Then Megan's voice, giddy and carefree, "Please, the only thing that make me nervous is if Kyle showed up." They all giggled. Then Megan said the words that changed everything. "Can you even imagine, though? Like, what if he just burst in right before I said I do and carried me off like in a movie? That'd be so romantic." More laughter. Sarah replied, "Oh my gosh, you'd totally run off with him, wouldn't you?" Megan's response was a wistful sigh. "In a heartbeat?" I stood frozen in the hallway. The world went quiet. It wasn't just a jest. It was her deepest, truest desire, shared with her friends on the day she was supposed to pledge her life to me. In a heartbeat? The pain hit like a flash, a searing, white-hot sting that lasted 3 seconds. Then it vanished, replaced by a cold, resolute calm. This wasn't a shock. It was validation of what my instincts had been screaming for a year. The wedding I'd spent a fortune on, the future I'd envisioned, it was all a farce. She wasn't marrying me, she was settling for me. I didn't barge in, I didn't shout. I turned and walked back to my suite. My mind was already plotting, gears turning with icy precision. She wanted a movie? Fine, I'd give her a cinematic masterpiece. Update 1 * back in my suite, my best man, my brother Liam, was there. He saw my expression and knew something was off. "What's wrong?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a phantom." "Worse," I said. "I just heard the truth." I recounted what I'd overheard. He wasn't shocked. He'd never liked Megan, always said she seemed insincere. He listened, his jaw clenching tighter. When I finished, he shook his head. "So what's your plan?" he asked. "Are you canceling it?" "Oh, I'm canceling it," I said, pulling out my phone. "But not just that. She wants a movie. She's getting one. I need a favor. I need Kyle's number." Liam knew someone who knew someone. It was a long shot, but 5 minutes later, a number appeared on his phone, Kyle's. My next move was critical. I'd bought a burner phone months ago, a cheap device I kept in my car for emergencies. This was an emergency. I retrieved it from my glove compartment. I couldn't just text Kyle from my number. I had to be cunning. I needed to sound like one of her desperate bridesmaids. I crafted the message carefully. "Kyle, this is Sarah, Megan's friend. You have to come now. Megan's panicking. She's in the bridal suite, sobbing, saying she can't go through with it. She keeps saying she should be with you. If you ever loved her, come get her before she makes the biggest mistake of her life. The ceremony's in less than an hour. Don't reply, just come." It was a compelling story, but I needed a clincher, something irresistible. I added, "She's wearing the locket you gave her with your picture inside. She said she couldn't take it off." It was a lie, but believable. He'd given her a locket years ago that she used to wear constantly. She still kept it in her jewelry box. I bet he wouldn't recall if he'd ever taken it back. I hit send, silenced the burner phone, and slipped it into my pocket. "What now?" Liam asked. "Now," I said, adjusting my tie, "we go get married." The next hour was dreamlike. I went through the motions, posing for photos with my groomsmen, chatting with my parents about how thrilled I was. I was an actor delivering the performance of a lifetime. The ceremony began. Music swelled. Guests sat in the exquisite garden where the altar stood. I stood at the front with the officiant, watching the procession. Groomsmen, bridesmaids, including Sarah, who avoided my gaze. Then came Megan, breathtaking, the perfect bride, walking toward a man she didn't love, her mind filled with fantasies of another. She floated down the aisle on her father's arm, her smile radiant. As she reached me, her father placed her hand in mine. She squeezed it, the epitome of bridal bliss. Just as the officiant opened his book, a stir erupted at the garden's rear. Heads turned. A man strode up the aisle, his face a mix of confusion and resolve. It was Kyle, in jeans and a t-shirt, utterly out of place. He marched to the altar, guests gasped. Megan's face paled. For a fleeting moment I saw it, a spark of wild excitement in her eyes. Her fantasy was unfolding. "Megan," Kyle said, his voice unsteady. "Sarah texted me. She said you were waiting for me." Megan stared, speechless. Her mother was about to leap up and scream. Her father looked ready to collapse. Before anyone could speak, I stepped forward, taking the microphone from the officiant. "It's all right, everyone," I said, my voice steady and clear, resonating through the speakers. "No need for alarm, I can explain." I turned to Kyle. "Kyle, thanks for coming, perfect timing. You see, an hour ago, my fiancée was telling her friends her ultimate fantasy was for you to crash our wedding and take her away. I overheard her. And I'm a romantic. I believe in making dreams come true. So I sent you that text from Sarah." I glanced at Sarah, who looked like she might collapse. I turned back to Megan, her face shifting from shock to horror as reality sank in. "So go ahead, man," I said to Kyle, gesturing to Megan. "She's yours, her fantasy is now your reality, good luck." Then I addressed the stunned crowd. "Folks, I'm sorry, it seems there won't be a wedding today. Megan's made her choice. But the good news, everything's paid for. The bar's open, the band's ready, and there's a ton of food. So join me in celebrating my incredible escape from a lifetime of disrespect. Let's party." I dropped the microphone, walked to my parents, who looked at me with a mix of shock and pride, and hugged my mom. Then I headed to the open bar, ordered a double whiskey, and watched the chaos unfold. Update 2, the scene at the altar was pure pandemonium. Megan stood frozen, her face a mask of dread. Kyle looked like a deer caught in headlights, realizing he'd stumbled into a humiliating trap. Megan's father was yelling at him, her mother sobbing. I stood at the bar, sipping my whiskey, watching it all. My family and friends, after a moment of stunned silence, began clapping. Liam joined me, slapped my back, and ordered a drink. My dodged-a-bullet party had begun. Megan's family imploded. Her father, obsessed with appearances, tried to salvage things, shouting at Kyle to leave and urging Megan to snap out of it. But it was too late. The story spread among the guests like wildfire. Kyle, to his credit, turned and left without another word, bolting from the scene. Megan's cinematic hero had abandoned her on set. Supported by her distraught bridesmaids, Megan was led to a side room. Her family followed, and a shouting match erupted, audible across the garden. Some of her family's guests, there out of duty, slipped away quietly. But most guests, my family, friends, and many mutual acquaintances, stayed, and it became the best party I'd ever attended. The band, after a brief, confused huddle, switched to lively rock and roll instead of sappy wedding songs. The bar was packed. People approached me all night, shaking my hand, calling it the most epic thing they'd ever witnessed. My dodged-a-bullet party was a triumph. The financial fallout was messy, but I was prepared. The wedding cost just over $100,000, with me covering 70% and her parents 30%. All contracts were in my name, deposits non-refundable. The next day, my phone was a battlefield. Hundreds of texts, missed calls, voicemails from Megan swinging between tearful apologies and angry threats, and her father vowing to sue me for humiliating his daughter. I ignored them all, letting my lawyer handle it. He sent a concise letter to Megan's father, stating that I considered their $30,000 contribution a gift for a wedding their daughter chose not to attend. It included an invoice for her share of the non-refundable deposits I'd paid, $35,000, and noted that if he pursued legal action for humiliation, I'd countersue for that amount and subpoena the bridesmaids to testify about the conversation I'd overheard. The legal threats stopped immediately. The social fallout was worse for her. The wedding story became local legend, with every version ending the same. Megan, the dreamer, getting her wish and it backfiring spectacularly. Her reputation was ruined. Kyle faced consequences too. He had a serious girlfriend of over a year who was furious about his wedding-crashing stunt. She dumped him publicly on social media. His movie star moment cost him his real relationship. A week later, Megan appeared at my house. I was in the front yard, gardening. She stepped out of her car, looking weary and defeated. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't," I replied, not looking up from the flower bed. "Please, Ethan," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I made a horrible, foolish mistake. It was just a silly daydream, a joke. It didn't mean anything." "It meant everything," I said, meeting her eyes. "It meant that on the day you were supposed to commit to me, you were fantasizing about someone else. It meant our entire relationship was a sham." "It wasn't a sham," she sobbed. "I do love you. I was just scared. You destroyed everything. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know." "I didn't humiliate you, Megan," I said, my voice icy. "I gave you what you wanted. You wanted a movie. You wanted your ex to show up. I just directed it. You wrote the script. The problem is you didn't like the ending. That's not my issue." "What am I supposed to do now?" she wailed. "My life's a mess." "I don't know," I said, returning to my garden. "Maybe write another movie. Just leave me out of it this time." I never spoke to her again. Final update ***, 6 months have passed and the dust has settled. The divorce was uncontested. My lawyer informed her that any attempt to claim assets would be met with the threatened lawsuit and subpoenas, and she signed the papers without a fight. Surprisingly, her parents sent me a $35,000 check with a brief note from her father. "Cover the losses." I think it was his way of acknowledging his daughter's fault. Megan's life, from what I've heard, is in ruins. She moved back with her parents. Her friends, including the laughing bridesmaids, deserted her. Being the star of the year's most humiliating wedding story made her a social outcast. She's working a regular retail job, her dreams of a glamorous, dramatic life gone. Kyle's still single, his reputation as a foolish home wrecker hard to shake. I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. For me, life is good. I sold the big house, too many bad memories, and bought a smaller place for myself. The $100,000 I spent on the wedding. I don't see it as a loss, but as the price of my freedom, the most costly and valuable lesson of my life. I'm dating again, someone gentle, kind, and genuine who finds my life engaging, not dull, and who'd never dream of joking about leaving me for another. The ultimate revenge wasn't the public spectacle. It was taking her at her word. She told her friends and me what she truly wanted, and I made it happen. I gave her the cinematic moment she'd always craved. Like in the movies, she now lives with the consequences of her choices. The credits have rolled, and she didn't get the happy ending she expected. I, however, did.